Lady Sarah Henderson had served in royal households for over 30 years, but she had never witnessed anything quite like the dinner party at Clarence House on that crisp October evening in 2019. As head housekeeper, she had orchestrated countless formal meals, but tonight felt different from the moment Prince Charles adjusted his water glass 3 inches to the left before the first course arrived. The guest list read like a who's who of European nobility and British government officials. The Danish Crown Princess Mary sat to the prince's right, while the Belgian ambassador occupied the place of honor across from her. What should have been a routine diplomatic dinner quickly became a masterclass in royal communication that would be discussed in palace circles for years to come. Sarah watched from her position near the serving doors as Prince Charles began the evening with what appeared to be casual conversation. He spoke about the unusually warm autumn weather while simultaneously performing a series of subtle movements that meant everything to the trained staff surrounding the dining room. His left hand rested momentarily on the stem of his wineglass, a signal that the evening's conversation would require the utmost discretion from all present. The prince's personal secretary, Michael Fawcett, stood at attention near the far wall. He had learned to read these signals over decades of service. When Prince Charles lifted his soup spoon with his right hand while keeping his left hand flat on the table, Michael knew that sensitive political matters would be discussed during the meal. Extra security measures were quietly implemented, and certain staff members were discreetly reassigned to other duties for the evening. Crown Princess Mary, well versed in royal protocol herself, responded to Prince Charles's opening gestures with her own subtle communication. She placed her napkin across her lap with deliberate precision, ensuring the corner pointed toward her host. The small movement indicated her willingness to engage in serious diplomatic conversation rather than mere social pleasantries. The first course arrived with military precision. As servers moved around the table with bowls of butternut squash soup, Sarah noticed Prince Charles pause before lifting his spoon. This moment of hesitation was not uncertainty about etiquette, it was a calculated signal to his guests that the real purpose of the evening was about to begin. The conversation that followed appeared casual to any outside observer. Prince Charles mentioned his recent visit to Jordan, praising King Abdullah's environmental initiatives. Princess Mary responded with enthusiasm about Denmark's renewable energy projects. The Belgian ambassador contributed thoughts about European Union climate policies. To anyone listening, it sounded like polite dinner conversation between friends. But Sarah, watching from her vantage point, saw the real conversation happening through carefully orchestrated movements around the table. When Prince Charles placed his soup spoon at the 2 o'clock position on his plate, he was signaling that the discussion had moved beyond pleasantries into substantive territory. When Princess Mary touched her water glass but did not drink, she was indicating agreement with the prince's assessment of a particular diplomatic situation. The Belgian ambassador, less familiar with these subtle protocols, unknowingly created a moment of tension when he placed his bread plate slightly to the left of its proper position. This seemingly innocent action signaled disagreement or discomfort to those versed in royal dining language. Sarah watched as Prince Charles's private secretary made note of this placement, understanding that the ambassador's true feelings about the evening's discussion topics had been inadvertently revealed. As the main course arrived, roasted lamb with seasonal vegetables from the prince's organic gardens at Highgrove, the real diplomatic work of the evening began in earnest. Prince Charles cut his meat with particular deliberation, each slice accompanied by specific movements that conveyed complex messages to his guests about Britain's position on various European matters. When the prince placed his fork down between bites and reached for his wineglass with his right hand, Princess Mary understood that he was about to share confidential information about upcoming changes in British foreign policy. She responded by adjusting her posture slightly forward, a sign that she was prepared to receive and protect this sensitive information. The Belgian ambassador, still unaware of the silent conversation occurring around him, continued to eat normally while unknowingly sending mixed signals with his own utensil placement. His knife, left slightly diagonal across his plate rather than parallel to his fork, suggested confusion or partial disagreement with the topics being discussed. Sarah had witnessed similar scenes countless times throughout her career, but she was always amazed by the complexity of these nonverbal exchanges. Every royal family had developed their own variations of this ancient communication system, passed down through generations of monarchs who understood that true power often required absolute discretion. The Danish royal family, she knew, had their own sophisticated system of table signals. Princess Mary had learned these protocols as part of her extensive training before marrying Crown Prince Frederik. Her ability to seamlessly transition between Danish and British royal dining language demonstrated the international nature of modern monarchy. As the evening progressed, Sarah noticed Prince Charles begin to employ more advanced signaling techniques. When he paused mid-sentence to adjust his cufflinks, he was indicating that the conversation had reached a particularly sensitive point requiring even greater discretion. Staff members who had been moving freely around the dining room perimeter suddenly found reasons to busy themselves in other areas of the house. The dessert course brought with it a new level of complexity to the silent communication taking place around the table. As servers presented individual chocolate soufflés, Prince Charles used the arrival of this final course to signal a shift in the evening's focus. He lifted his dessert spoon and held it vertically for just a moment before placing it beside his plate, a gesture that indicated the formal diplomatic discussion was concluding and the remainder of the meal would focus on personal relationships and future social arrangements. Princess Mary, recognizing this transition signal, began to share more personal anecdotes about her children's recent activities and their upcoming family vacation plans. This shift from political to personal conversation was not random, it was a carefully choreographed conclusion to an evening that had accomplished specific diplomatic objectives through methods that left no official record or transcript. The Belgian ambassador, finally, beginning to sense the undercurrents of communication he had been missing throughout the meal, attempted to contribute to this more personal phase of the dinner. His comments about his own family and recent travels were received warmly, but Sarah could see that Prince Charles continued to monitor the ambassador's utensil placement and other subtle behaviors for any additional insights into Belgium's unofficial positions on various matters. As coffee was served in delicate china cups bearing the Prince of Wales's personal crest, Sarah reflected on the remarkable sophistication of what she had just witnessed. In the span of less than 3 hours, complex diplomatic information had been exchanged, international relationships had been strengthened, and future cooperation had been negotiated, all through a combination of carefully chosen words and an intricate system of nonverbal signals that remained invisible to all but the most trained observers. The evening concluded with Prince Charles standing and proposing a toast to European friendship and cooperation. As glasses were raised around the table, Sarah noticed that each guest held their glass at a slightly different height, a final display of the nuanced communication that had characterized the entire meal. These seemingly random variations in glass position actually indicated each participant's level of commitment to the agreements and understandings that had been reached during the dinner. As guests began to depart, exchanging warm handshakes and promises to meet again soon, Sarah began the process of analyzing every detail of the evening for the official household records. While no minutes would be kept of the actual conversations, detailed notes about guest behavior, seating arrangements, and menu choices would be preserved for future reference. The success of the evening was measured not in signed documents or formal agreements, but in the subtle signs of satisfaction displayed by all participants as they prepared to leave. Princess Mary's final gesture, placing her napkin precisely in the center of her plate before standing, indicated that Denmark would be a reliable partner in the initiatives discussed during the meal. The Belgian ambassador's decision to finish every drop of his coffee suggested his growing appreciation for the sophistication of British diplomatic methods. For Lady Sarah Henderson, the evening represented another successful demonstration of why royal protocol had evolved into such a sophisticated art form over the centuries. In a world where every word spoken by royalty could be scrutinized and analyzed by media and political opponents, the ability to communicate complex ideas through silent signals remained an invaluable tool for conducting the business of modern monarchy. The morning after the Clarence House dinner, news of what had transpired through silent signals during the meal began to ripple through the interconnected network of European royal households. Princess Mary's private secretary, Lars Anderson, had already transmitted coded messages back to Copenhagen detailing the success of the evening's unofficial negotiations. These messages, sent through diplomatic channels that had existed for generations, confirmed that ancient royal communication methods remained as relevant in the 21st century as they had been in medieval courts. Meanwhile, at Buckingham Palace, Queen Elizabeth II was receiving her own briefing about the evening's events from her private secretary. The Queen, who had perfected the art of silent table communication over nearly 70 years on the throne, understood immediately the significance of what Prince Charles had accomplished. His successful use of traditional signaling methods to conduct modern diplomacy demonstrated the continuing evolution of royal protocol in an increasingly complex world. The Queen's own mastery of dining table communication had become legendary among those privileged enough to witness it firsthand. During her countless state dinners over the decades, she had used subtle gestures to manage everything from sensitive political discussions to family tensions that threatened to erupt in public. Her ability to control the mood and direction of a meal through barely perceptible movements had prevented numerous diplomatic incidents and maintained the dignity of the monarchy through challenging periods. Margaret Thornton, who had served as the Queen's personal dining room attendant for over 20 years, could recall dozens of instances where the Queen's silent signals had changed the course of important conversations. During a particularly tense state dinner with Soviet leaders in the 1980s, the Queen had used a complex series of glass adjustments and napkin movements to communicate to her staff that certain topics of conversation required immediate intervention if they arose. The system of royal table signals had its roots in medieval court life, when monarchs needed ways to communicate with trusted advisors and staff without alerting potentially hostile nobles or foreign ambassadors to their true intentions. Over the centuries, each royal house had developed its own variations of these signals, creating a rich tradition of nonverbal communication that was passed down from sovereign to heir as part of their essential training. The British royal family's current system had been refined during the Victorian era, when Queen Victoria's extensive correspondence with other European monarchs led to the standardization of certain gestures across multiple royal houses. This standardization proved invaluable during the complex diplomatic maneuvering that characterized late 19th and early 20th century European politics. Queen Elizabeth II had learned these protocols as a young princess during World War II, when the ability to communicate sensitive information without being detected by potential German spies was literally a matter of life and death. Her father, King George VI, had impressed upon her the importance of mastering these skills as part of her preparation for eventually assuming the throne. The complexity of modern royal dining signals extended far beyond simple yes-no communications. Different combinations of movements could convey detailed information about policy positions, personal relationships, health concerns, and security matters. A skilled royal observer could determine a monarch's true feelings about a wide range of subjects simply by watching their behavior during a formal meal. Princess Margaret, Queen Elizabeth's sister, had been particularly gifted at reading and employing these signals during her lifetime. Her natural charisma and quick wit made her especially effective at using dining table communication to gather information from unsuspecting guests or to convey royal displeasure without creating public scenes that might embarrass the monarchy. The training required to master these communication methods was extensive and ongoing. Young royals began learning basic signals as children, starting with simple gestures that indicated their needs to nannies and tutors. As they matured, their education expanded to include the sophisticated techniques required for diplomatic and state functions. Prince William and Prince Harry had received comprehensive instruction in these methods from both their father and grandmother. Their ability to seamlessly communicate with each other and with staff during public events had been crucial to their success in representing the monarchy during their young adult years. The media often remarked on their apparent telepathic ability to coordinate their actions during public appearances, unaware that they were simply employing centuries-old royal communication techniques. The international nature of modern royalty meant that princes and princesses needed to be familiar not only with their own family's signals but also with the variations used by other royal houses. Crown Princess Victoria of Sweden, for example, had learned British protocols during her extensive visits to London, while Prince William had studied Scandinavian and Dutch royal communication methods as part of his preparation for future diplomatic responsibilities. These cross-cultural royal communication skills became particularly important during major international events like royal weddings, funerals, and jubilee celebrations, when dozens of royal family members from different countries needed to coordinate their behavior while maintaining appropriate protocol in front of global audiences. The wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton in 2011 had provided a masterful display of international royal communication in action. Throughout the ceremony and subsequent celebrations, royal family members from across Europe had used subtle signals to coordinate everything from processional timing to photograph arrangements, all while appearing to act spontaneously for the benefit of the watching world. Catherine's integration into this communication system had been one of the most challenging aspects of her preparation for royal life. Unlike those born into royal families, she had needed to learn decades of accumulated protocol in a compressed timeframe while simultaneously dealing with intense media scrutiny. Her quick mastery of these skills had impressed even the most traditional members of the royal household and had contributed significantly to her successful adaptation to royal life. The Queen had personally overseen Catherine's training in dining table protocols, recognizing that the future Princess of Wales would need these skills to effectively represent the monarchy at state functions and diplomatic events. Their private lessons, conducted in the Queen's personal dining room at Windsor Castle, had covered everything from basic signal recognition to advanced techniques for managing difficult guests or sensitive situations. One particularly challenging aspect of Catherine's education had involved learning to maintain these communication protocols while pregnant and managing morning sickness during early public appearances. The Queen's staff had developed special signals to help Catherine navigate these challenging situations without drawing unwanted media attention to her condition before official announcements were made. The birth of Prince George had created new dimensions to royal dining communication, as the household needed to develop protocols for including young children in formal meals while maintaining the sophisticated signaling necessary for conducting royal business. The Queen, drawing on her experience raising her own children in similar circumstances, had created modified signals that allowed for child-friendly communication while preserving the essential elements of royal protocol. Prince George's early education in royal communication began with simple gestures used during family meals at Kensington Palace. His natural intelligence and curiosity made him an apt pupil, and, by age 3 he had already mastered basic signals for communicating with household staff during formal occasions. His younger siblings, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, would follow similar educational paths as they matured. The Spanish royal family had faced their own challenges in adapting traditional communication methods to modern circumstances. Queen Letizia, like Catherine, had needed to learn complex protocols as an adult after marrying into royalty. Her background in journalism had actually proved advantageous, as her skills in reading body language and nonverbal cues had translated well to mastering royal dining signals. King Felipe VI of Spain had worked closely with his father, the former King Juan Carlos, to ensure continuity in Spanish royal communication traditions while adapting them to contemporary diplomatic requirements. Their successful navigation of Spain's transition from dictatorship to democracy had been aided by their ability to communicate complex political positions through traditional royal signals during state functions. The Dutch royal family had developed some of the most sophisticated dining communication protocols in Europe, partly due to their country's central role in European Union politics and international trade. Queen Maxima, originally from Argentina, had brought her own cultural insights to these traditional methods, creating innovative combinations that proved particularly effective in multicultural diplomatic settings. King Willem Alexander's education in these protocols had been notably comprehensive, as his mother, Princess Beatrix, had recognized early in his childhood that the future of the Dutch monarchy would require exceptional diplomatic skills. His ability to seamlessly blend traditional royal communication with modern leadership techniques had made him one of the most effective young monarchs in contemporary Europe. The Belgian royal family's approach to dining table communication reflected their country's complex linguistic and cultural divisions. King Philippe had needed to master multiple sets of signals that could function effectively in both French and Dutch-speaking contexts, while also remaining comprehensible to international guests unfamiliar with Belgian cultural nuances. These various national approaches to royal dining communication all shared common elements that dated back to the interconnected European royal families of previous centuries. The basic gesture vocabulary remained consistent across borders, even as individual families developed their own cultural variations and specialized techniques for specific diplomatic situations. The mastery of royal dining communication reached its most dramatic demonstration during crisis situations, when the ability to convey complex information without speaking could literally determine the fate of nations. Such a moment occurred during a state dinner at the Royal Palace in Stockholm in March 2014, when an unexpected international incident required immediate but discreet coordination between multiple European monarchs who were attending a celebration of Swedish Crown Princess Victoria's upcoming birthday. Ambassador Heinrich Müller, Germany's representative to Sweden, had arrived at the palace that evening carrying urgent news about developing tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The information he possessed was too sensitive to discuss openly, even in the secure environment of a royal state dinner, but too important to delay until official diplomatic channels could be activated the following day. King Carl XVI Gustav of Sweden, an experienced monarch who had navigated his country through decades of careful neutrality, immediately recognized the gravity of the situation when Ambassador Müller discreetly approached him before dinner was served. The king's response demonstrated the sophisticated nature of royal crisis communication protocols that had evolved over centuries of European political complexity. Rather than disrupting the evening's carefully planned program, King Carl XVI Gustav employed a series of subtle signals to alert other royal guests that urgent matters required their attention while maintaining the facade of normal social interaction. His first signal, adjusting his tie clip twice in rapid succession, alerted his personal staff that extraordinary security measures should be quietly implemented around the dining room. Crown Princess Victoria, seated at the head table with visiting royalty including Prince Charles and Princess Anne from Britain, immediately noticed her father's unusual behavior. Her years of training in royal protocol allowed her to recognize that the evening's social program was about to be transformed into an impromptu diplomatic crisis management session. The Crown Princess responded to her father's signals by subtly adjusting her own behavior to support whatever emergency protocols he was implementing. When she lifted her water glass with both hands instead of one, a gesture that appeared natural but carried specific meaning within Swedish royal protocol, she was indicating to household staff that the evening's conversations would require the highest levels of privacy and security. Prince Charles, deeply experienced in reading international royal signals, recognized immediately that something significant was developing. His own response, placing his dinner roll on the bread plate with the torn side facing away from his body, communicated to other British representatives in the room that they should prepare for possible emergency diplomatic coordination. Princess Anne, known for her quick intelligence and no-nonsense approach to royal duties, observed her brother's signal and began her own assessment of the situation. Her decision to wear her reading glasses despite not needing them during dinner was her way of signaling to British security personnel that she was prepared to participate in whatever emergency protocols might be required. The German ambassador's approach to King Carl XVI Gustav had been carefully orchestrated to avoid attracting attention from other guests, but trained royal observers around the room had noticed the unusual nature of their brief interaction. The king's subsequent behavior patterns confirmed that significant news had been delivered that would affect the evening's proceedings. Ambassador Muller himself was not fully versed in Swedish royal dining protocols, but his years of diplomatic experience had taught him to recognize when he had triggered high-level crisis response procedures. The subtle changes in staff behavior around the dining room, combined with the altered body language of royal guests, indicated that his message had been received and was being acted upon through channels he could not fully understand. The complexity of managing this crisis communication while maintaining normal dinner conversation required extraordinary skill from all participants. King Carl XVI Gustav continued to engage in pleasant discussion about Swedish cultural traditions with his guests while simultaneously coordinating response strategies through a complex system of gestural communication that remained invisible to most observers. Queen Sylvia of Sweden, positioned strategically across the table from her husband, served as a crucial communication relay during the crisis. Her ability to interpret the king's signals and transmit modified versions to other female royals at the table allowed for broader coordination without compromising the security of the information being shared. The dinner's first course, traditional Swedish gravlax with dill sauce, provided an opportunity for more complex signaling as guests used their eating utensils to convey detailed responses to the crisis information. Prince Charles's method of cutting his fish into precisely equal portions indicated British willingness to support coordinated European response measures, while Princess Anne's decision to finish her entire serving quickly suggested readiness for immediate action if required. Crown Princess Victoria's handling of her silverware throughout the first course demonstrated why she was considered one of Europe's most promising future monarchs. Her signals indicated not only her understanding of the crisis situation but also her assessment of various response options and her recommendations for Swedish national interests. The arrival of the main course, roasted elk with lingonberry sauce, a traditional Swedish delicacy, marked a transition to more intensive crisis communication. The complex nature of carving and serving this elaborate dish provided cover for extended gestural conversations between royal guests about coordination strategies and resource allocation. Queen Sylvia's technique for managing her portion of elk served multiple communication purposes. Her careful removal of the meat from the bone, performed with deliberate precision, indicated to other queens and princesses at the table that Sweden was prepared to take a leadership role in whatever coordinated response emerged from the evening's discussions. The British contingent's response to the main course demonstrated the sophisticated nature of their own crisis communication protocols. Prince Charles's decision to request additional lingonberry sauce, an unusual move for a guest at a formal dinner, signaled British intelligence services' readiness to share additional classified information about the developing situation. Princess Anne's complimentary signal, declining the offered wine pairing in favor of continuing with water, indicated British military preparedness to support diplomatic initiatives with concrete action if necessary. Together, these signals painted a picture of comprehensive British support for coordinated European crisis response. The German ambassador, though not directly participating in the royal communication system, had been positioned at a table where he could observe the complex interactions taking place at the head table. His growing understanding of what was transpiring around him led to his own subtle behavioral changes that were noted and interpreted by royal security personnel. Ambassador Muller's decision to engage in extended conversation with the Swedish Minister of Foreign Affairs, seated beside him, represented his attempt to activate formal diplomatic channels that could support whatever informal coordination was being achieved through royal protocols. His years of experience had taught him that royal crisis communication often preceded official governmental response by crucial hours or days. The evening's cheese course provided an opportunity for final coordination before the crisis communication phase of the dinner concluded. The selection of aged Swedish cheeses, each requiring different cutting and serving techniques, allowed for complex final exchanges between royal participants about timing, resource allocation, and public communication strategies. King Carl XVI Gustav's methodical approach to sampling each cheese variety served as his final assessment of the collaborative response that had been coordinated during the meal. His approval of each cheese, expressed through traditional Swedish dining etiquette, indicated his satisfaction with the level of international cooperation that had been achieved through the evening's unprecedented crisis communication exercise. The dessert course, traditional princess cake with its distinctive bright green marzipan covering, arrived as the crisis communication phase of the evening was concluding and normal social interaction was resuming. The symbolic nature of serving a dessert named for Swedish royalty provided an appropriate transition back to the evening's original celebratory purpose. Crown Princess Victoria's handling of her princess cake demonstrated her mastery of the complex transition between crisis and social modes of royal communication. Her enthusiastic enjoyment of the dessert, combined with animated conversation about childhood memories associated with the traditional sweet, effectively signaled that the emergency coordination phase had concluded successfully. The coffee service that concluded the formal dinner provided a final opportunity for participants to confirm their understanding of what had been accomplished during the evening. The traditional Swedish coffee ritual, with its emphasis on prolonged conversation and multiple servings, allowed for comprehensive review of coordination agreements without appearing to conduct official diplomatic business. As guests began to depart from the royal palace that evening, the success of the crisis communication exercise became apparent in their relaxed demeanor and satisfied expressions. Despite having coordinated complex international response strategies to a developing crisis, they had maintained perfect social protocol and preserved the celebratory atmosphere appropriate to Crown Princess Victoria's upcoming birthday. The effectiveness of royal dining communication during crisis situations had been demonstrated once again, proving that these ancient protocols remained valuable tools for modern diplomatic coordination. The ability to conduct such sensitive coordination while maintaining social appearances represented the highest level of royal protocol mastery. Ambassador Muller's departure from the palace that evening marked the successful completion of a communication exercise that would have lasting implications for European crisis response capabilities. His initial message had been received, understood, and acted upon through channels that left no official record but achieved comprehensive international coordination. The legacy of that evening would influence European royal protocol for years to come, as the participating monarchs refined their crisis communication techniques based on lessons learned during the Stockholm dinner. The successful coordination achieved that night would serve as a model for future emergency response protocols across the interconnected network of European royal houses. The most challenging aspect of royal dining communication occurred when protocol went wrong, creating situations that required immediate improvisation and damage control. Such incidents, while rare, provided valuable lessons about the importance of precise execution in royal signal systems and the consequences of miscommunication at the highest levels of society. One of the most memorable protocol failures in recent royal history occurred during a state visit to Japan in 2008, when a series of cultural misunderstandings between British and Japanese royal dining customs created a cascade of communication errors that nearly resulted in a diplomatic incident. The event began innocuously enough, during what should have been a straightforward welcome dinner at the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, had arrived in Japan with decades of experience in international royal protocol, but the unique nature of Japanese imperial dining customs presented challenges that even his extensive training had not fully prepared him to navigate. The Imperial Household Agency had briefed British representatives about basic Japanese etiquette, but the subtle integration of these customs with traditional royal communication signals proved more complex than anticipated. The trouble began during the ceremonial sake service that opened the formal dinner. When Emperor Akihito personally served sake to Prince Philip, the Duke's response followed British royal protocol for receiving formal toasts from fellow monarchs. His gesture of raising the cup with both hands while maintaining eye contact was perfectly appropriate within European royal tradition, but it inadvertently triggered a series of Japanese ceremonial responses that were not part of the planned evening program. Princess Masako, who had been educated partially in Western institutions and understood both cultural systems, immediately recognized the developing confusion. Her attempt to bridge the cultural gap through her own gestural communication demonstrated the complexity of managing multiple royal communication systems simultaneously during high-stakes diplomatic events. The Japanese imperial household's response to the cultural signal confusion required rapid improvisation from staff members who were trained in centuries-old ceremonial protocols but had limited experience with European royal communication methods. Their professional handling of the situation prevented any public embarrassment, but the incident highlighted the challenges faced by modern royalty operating in increasingly multicultural diplomatic environments. Prince Philip's recognition of the developing situation showcased his decades of experience in international royal representation. Rather than continuing with British protocols that were creating confusion, he adapted his behavior to more closely match Japanese customs, demonstrating the flexibility required for successful royal diplomacy in complex cultural situations. The resolution of the sake ceremony confusion required collaborative effort from both British and Japanese royal representatives. The successful navigation of this challenge strengthened relationships between the two royal households and led to improved cultural briefing protocols for future international royal exchanges. A different type of protocol failure occurred during a family dinner at Sandringham House in 2017, when Prince Louis, then just learning to walk, inadvertently disrupted a sophisticated communication sequence between Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Charles about sensitive family matters. The incident illustrated how even the most carefully planned royal communication could be affected by unpredictable elements within the royal family itself. The Queen had been using a complex series of signals during the family meal to convey her concerns about media coverage of certain family members' activities. Her methodology involved strategic timing of her eating patterns combined with specific placement of her dining utensils to communicate detailed instructions about public relations strategies to Prince Charles and other senior family members present at the dinner. Prince Louis's enthusiastic participation in the family meal, including his determined efforts to feed himself with mixed success, created a series of unintended interruptions to the Queen's carefully timed communication sequence. His innocent actions, throwing food, banging utensils, and demanding attention from adults around the table made it impossible for the Queen to complete her intended message through traditional signals. The Queen's adaptation to this unexpected challenge demonstrated her legendary flexibility and sense of humor. Rather than becoming frustrated with the disruption, she incorporated Prince Louis's behavior into her communication strategy, using his actions as natural transition points for shifting between different message topics. Princess Catherine's management of her young son during this dinner showcased her growing mastery of royal family dynamics. Her ability to maintain Prince Louis's happiness and engagement while remaining alert to the Queen's ongoing communication needs represented sophisticated multitasking that impressed other family members present at the meal. Prince William's support for his wife's efforts to balance childcare with royal protocol demonstrated the evolution of traditional gender roles within the royal family. His willingness to take primary responsibility for managing Prince Louis during certain portions of the dinner allowed Princess Catherine to focus more completely on understanding and responding to the Queen's communication signals. The successful resolution of this family protocol challenge created new informal guidelines for managing young children during royal family dinners where serious communication needed to occur. These adaptations represented the ongoing evolution of royal customs to accommodate changing family structures and modern parenting approaches. Perhaps the most serious protocol failure in recent memory occurred during a state dinner at Buckingham Palace in 2015, when a visiting head of state's unfamiliarity with British royal dining signals led to a series of misunderstandings that complicated important trade negotiations. The incident began when the visiting dignitary interpreted the Queen's routine signal for changing wine service as a sign of displeasure with ongoing conversation topics. The visiting president, already nervous about making a good impression during his first state visit to Britain, overreacted to what he perceived as the Queen's negative response to his comments about proposed trade agreements between their two countries. His subsequent behavior, including abbreviated responses to questions and requests to speak privately with British officials, created confusion among other guests about the actual status of diplomatic discussions. Queen Elizabeth II's recognition of the developing misunderstanding required delicate intervention that preserved the dignity of all participants while clarifying the actual situation. Her approach involved gradually increasing the warmth of her interactions with the visiting president while using clear, unmistakable signals to indicate her satisfaction with the evening's proceedings. The resolution of this diplomatic confusion required coordination between the Queen, Prince Philip, and senior British government officials present at the dinner. Their collective effort to restore the visiting president's confidence without explicitly acknowledging the misunderstanding demonstrated sophisticated crisis management skills developed over decades of international royal representation. The aftermath of this incident led to improved briefing protocols for visiting heads of state who were not familiar with British royal dining customs. The Foreign Office developed comprehensive materials that explained basic royal communication signals to prevent similar misunderstandings during future state visits. Training programs for royal household staff were also enhanced following this incident, with increased emphasis on recognizing when guests might be misinterpreting royal signals and techniques for providing discreet clarification without embarrassing visiting dignitaries. These improvements strengthened Britain's ability to use royal hospitality as an effective diplomatic tool. The most complex protocol challenges arose during multi-generational royal family gatherings where different age groups had varying levels of familiarity with traditional communication signals. Young royals who had grown up with modern technology sometimes struggled with the patience and precision required for traditional gestural communication, while older family members occasionally found it difficult to adapt ancient protocols to contemporary situations. Prince Harry's natural charisma and informal communication style, while highly effective in many royal contexts, sometimes clashed with the formal requirements of traditional dining signals during family gatherings. His preference for direct verbal communication over subtle gestures created occasional confusion during meals where other family members were employing complex nonverbal coordination strategies. The royal family's approach to managing these generational differences involved gradual education and practice rather than strict enforcement of traditional methods. Younger royals were encouraged to master basic signal vocabulary while being allowed flexibility in how they employed these skills during less formal family interactions. Prince George's education in royal dining communication began with simple games during family meals that gradually introduced more sophisticated concepts as he matured. His natural intelligence and curiosity made him an enthusiastic student of these traditional skills, and his progress impressed senior family members who remembered their own childhood training in similar protocols. Princess Charlotte's instruction in royal communication methods reflected evolving approaches to gender roles within royal education. Unlike previous generations where female royals might receive different training than their male counterparts, Charlotte's education paralleled her brothers in all aspects of protocol and communication skills. The integration of modern technology into royal communication presented both opportunities and challenges for maintaining traditional dining signals. While smartphones and other devices could facilitate rapid coordination during crisis situations, their presence at formal dinners sometimes interfered with the subtle observation required for effective gestural communication. Security considerations in the digital age added new complexity to royal dining communication, as traditional signals needed to be evaluated for their vulnerability to electronic surveillance and digital interpretation. Royal protection officers developed new protocols that maintained the effectiveness of ancient communication methods while addressing contemporary security threats. The training of new household staff in royal communication protocols required extensive education in both historical context and practical application. New employees needed to understand not only how to recognize and respond to royal signals but also when and how to employ appropriate discretion in observing and acting upon these communications. The success of royal dining communication ultimately depended on the collective competence of all participants, from senior royals to junior staff members. Any weak link in this communication chain could potentially compromise the effectiveness of the entire system, making comprehensive training and ongoing practice essential for maintaining protocol standards. The evolution of royal dining communication continued to reflect broader changes in society, technology, and international relations, while preserving the essential elements that had made these systems effective for centuries. The balance between tradition and adaptation remained a central challenge for modern royal households committed to maintaining their historical heritage while effectively serving contemporary diplomatic and social functions. The future of royal dining communication faces unprecedented challenges as monarchies adapt to social media transparency, global connectivity, and changing public expectations about royal accessibility. Yet rather than diminishing the importance of these ancient protocols, modern circumstances have actually increased their value as tools for maintaining privacy and conducting sensitive business in an increasingly public world. The wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in 2018 provided a fascinating glimpse into how traditional royal communication methods were evolving to accommodate new cultural influences and modern relationship dynamics. Meghan's integration into the royal family required not only learning British protocols but also understanding how American cultural expectations might conflict with established royal communication traditions. The challenges began during Meghan's first formal dinner with the Queen at Balmoral Castle, where decades of Scottish royal tradition created additional layers of protocol complexity. Queen Elizabeth II, recognizing that Meghan's American background provided different cultural references for interpreting social signals, personally oversaw an intensive education program designed to bridge these cultural gaps while respecting Meghan's individual personality and communication style. Prince Harry's role in facilitating his wife's adaptation to royal communication protocols demonstrated his own sophisticated understanding of these systems and his ability to serve as a cultural interpreter between American and British approaches to formal interaction. His explanation of various signal meanings and their historical context helped Meghan appreciate the deeper significance of what might otherwise appear to be arbitrary social rules. The Queen's approach to training Meghan reflected lessons learned from previous experiences with family members who had married into the royal family from different cultural backgrounds. Her methodology emphasized practical application rather than theoretical instruction, with numerous opportunities for Meghan to practice royal communication skills in supportive environments before facing high-stakes public events. Meghan's natural intelligence and professional background in entertainment provided advantages in mastering royal communication techniques, as her acting experience had taught her to observe and replicate subtle behavioral cues. However, the transition from performed behavior to authentic royal communication required sustained effort and practice under the guidance of experienced family members and household staff. The couple's decision to step back from senior royal duties in 2020 created new questions about how royal communication traditions might evolve when family members choose to operate outside traditional monarchy structures while maintaining their royal titles and family relationships. Their situation highlighted the flexibility required in modern royal protocol to accommodate changing personal circumstances and evolving family dynamics. Meanwhile, Prince William and Catherine's growing responsibilities as future monarchs required increasingly sophisticated mastery of royal dining communication for managing complex international relationships and domestic political situations. Their state visit to Pakistan in 2019 demonstrated how effectively they had integrated these traditional skills with contemporary diplomatic requirements. The Pakistan visit presented unique challenges because of the complex political sensitivities surrounding Britain's historical relationship with the region and ongoing security concerns that required constant but invisible coordination between royal representatives and protection services. The successful navigation of these challenges through carefully orchestrated formal dinners showcased the continuing relevance of traditional royal communication methods in modern diplomatic contexts. Catherine's performance during the Pakistan state dinners earned particular praise from diplomatic observers who noted her ability to use subtle signals to manage sensitive conversation topics while maintaining the warm, personal relationships essential for effective modern diplomacy. Her mastery of these skills represented a significant evolution from her early royal appearances when she was still learning basic protocol requirements. Prince William's own development as a royal communicator had been shaped by his unique position as a future monarch who had experienced both traditional royal education and contemporary military training. His service with the Royal Air Force had provided insights into alternative forms of nonverbal communication that enhanced his understanding of how royal dining signals might be adapted for different contexts and audiences. The couple's children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, were receiving royal communication education that reflected lessons learned from previous generations while incorporating new understanding about child development and learning styles. Their instruction emphasized play-based learning that made protocol education enjoyable rather than burdensome, ensuring they would develop positive associations with royal traditions. King Charles III's accession to the throne in 2022 brought renewed attention to royal dining protocols as observers analyzed how his personal communication style might influence the evolution of these traditions. His decades of experience as Prince of Wales had provided extensive opportunities to develop and refine his own approaches to royal communication, incorporating environmental consciousness and interfaith dialogue into traditional protocol frameworks. The King's first state dinner as monarch, hosted for the President of South Africa, demonstrated his intention to maintain traditional royal communication standards while adapting them to reflect his personal priorities and contemporary global challenges. His innovative use of dining protocols to highlight climate change initiatives and Commonwealth relationships showcased the potential for ancient traditions to serve modern diplomatic objectives. Queen Camilla's role in these evolving protocols reflected her own journey from outsider to senior royal family member, bringing valuable perspective about the challenges faced by those who must learn these complex systems as adults. Her experience informed new approaches to training other family members and household staff in royal communication methods that emphasized patience, practice, and gradual skill development. The Danish royal family's approach to modernizing their own dining communication protocols provided valuable insights for other European monarchies facing similar challenges. Crown Princess Mary's successful integration of Australian cultural perspectives into traditional Danish royal customs had created new models for multicultural royal communication that maintained essential protocol elements while accommodating diverse cultural backgrounds. Swedish Crown Princess Victoria's preparation for eventual succession to the throne included extensive study of how royal communication methods might evolve to address climate change, technological advancement, and changing social expectations about monarchy's role in democratic societies. Her innovative approaches to traditional protocols were closely watched by other European royal households seeking to balance historical tradition with contemporary relevance. The impact of social media on royal communication created new considerations for traditional dining protocols, as any public event might be photographed and analyzed by millions of observers worldwide. Royal households developed new techniques for maintaining the effectiveness of subtle signal systems while ensuring that their public appearances conveyed appropriate messages to global audiences who might not understand traditional protocol contexts. Training programs for household staff evolved to address these contemporary challenges, with increased emphasis on understanding how traditional royal communication might appear to modern observers and techniques for maintaining protocol effectiveness in highly public environments. Staff members learned to coordinate traditional service standards with contemporary security requirements and media management considerations. The global COVID-19 pandemic created unprecedented challenges for royal dining communication as social distancing requirements disrupted traditional seating arrangements and service patterns that had been essential elements of established signal systems. Royal households demonstrated remarkable creativity in adapting their communication methods to virtual meetings, outdoor events, and modified indoor gatherings that maintained health safety while preserving essential protocol functions. The Queen's final years provided masterful demonstrations of how royal communication skills could be adapted to address health challenges without compromising dignity or effectiveness. Her continued use of dining protocols during smaller family gatherings and modified public events maintained continuity of tradition while acknowledging the practical requirements of aging and reduced mobility. The transition to King Charles III's reign marked a new chapter in the evolution of royal dining communication, with opportunity for fresh approaches that honored historical tradition while addressing contemporary challenges. Early indications suggested that the new monarch would maintain core protocol elements while introducing innovations that reflected his environmental advocacy and interfaith engagement priorities. Future developments in royal communication would likely incorporate lessons learned from recent global challenges, changing social expectations, and evolving technology while preserving the essential elements that had made these systems effective for centuries. The balance between tradition and adaptation would continue to define how monarchies maintained their relevance and effectiveness in a rapidly changing world. The training of future generations in royal communication protocols would need to address both traditional skills and contemporary applications, ensuring that young royals understood historical context while developing abilities to use these ancient methods for modern diplomatic and social purposes. This education would remain essential preparation for royal service in an increasingly complex global environment. The enduring value of royal dining communication lay not in its specific techniques but in its underlying principles of discreet coordination, respectful interaction, and effective leadership through personal example. These principles would continue to serve royal families well regardless of how specific protocols might evolve to address future challenges and opportunities. As royal families looked toward the future, their commitment to maintaining and evolving these communication traditions reflected their understanding that effective monarchy required both respect for historical heritage and adaptability to contemporary circumstances. The quiet cues shared around royal dining tables would continue to play essential roles in modern diplomacy, family relationships, and public service, preserving ancient wisdom while serving contemporary needs. The legacy of royal dining communication extended far beyond the immediate participants to influence broader understanding of leadership, diplomacy, and social grace in societies around the world. These traditions would continue to evolve while maintaining their essential character, ensuring that the sophisticated art of royal communication remained relevant and effective for generations to come.